Okay, so we're back. Just a real quick review about what we talked about yesterday. Brain controls everything in your body, which causes a function, which if that can happen without any kind of interference, your body is said to be in a state of ease, or it's a good healthy state, okay? The functions that the brain exerts are divided into three different areas. You've got your autonomic nervous system, which is your organs, blood vessels, and glands. Your motor nervous system, which is your muscles and your joint function. And your sensory nervous system, which is your pain. Okay? All right. So, and then also remember, the information from the brain goes to the body, but also comes from the body to the brain. Okay. So, I'm going to erase this part here because we don't need that anymore. So, what is it that happens to most of you that causes you to need to come into our office? Okay. What happens is when your brain is sending that message down, it comes out of the spinal cord. You have a spinal bone, and a disc. In between those two spinal bones is a hole that nerves come out of. When those nerves come out, they carry the message to whatever segment it needs to go to. So for example, your heart's going to come out in the thoracic region, legs come out down in the low back region, head, neck, shoulders, control of that stuff comes out up in the neck. Okay? So the message comes down, going to the body. What happens that causes most of you to come into our office is there's a break in the communication here. And that break is called a subluxation. Now, a subluxation is when a bone goes out of place and puts pressure on a nerve. It's a very simple definition. There's a lot of biomechanical stuff that goes into that, but that's the basic definition of what this is. Okay? Now, you've all seen kids playing on the playground. You've all seen kids playing sports. You've all seen 2-year-olds learning how to walk. You see people doing these things, these young children, and they fall. Anytime there's a fall, there's a force. That force goes between the ground and the body. The body absorbs most of that force because it's the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance in the body is the spine. So you hit the ground, the body absorbs the force then moves into the spine absorbs the force. This will take one or more of these little bones and put them out of place. Now when you're a kid, you kind of stand up, shake it off, you're good and flexible, you don't worry about it. But as you grow older and you start losing some of that flexibility, you start feeling the effects of these subluxations. Now the reason I'm telling you that is this. You can get a subluxation and you may not feel the effect of it for many, many years. Car accidents, it's very common for people in car accidents to not feel the symptoms for months to years later. Football players, I see a lot of high school athletes in here in their 30s that are really, suffering because of stuff that happened to them when they were playing sports, and they were fine when they were playing the sports. So this is very, very common for this to happen. Childbirth very often is the first subluxation. So it's important to have your kids checked to make sure there's no nerve pressure going on with them. A sign of nerve pressure for kids is chronic ear infections, allergies, colic, anything like that. If they've got that going on, let us know. We'll see if we can help them with it. Okay? So you get this subluxation, and it begins a process, kind of a degenerative process. Downward spiral. And this spiral can take anywhere from, sometimes I've seen it as high as 30 years to start producing symptoms. Sometimes it's as little as, 1 month. It just depends on what happens, okay? But the path that this takes, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to interfere with the brain-body connection. The first thing you're going to start having is some malfunction. Now this is where this diagram comes in key. Because if you're having malfunction, you may not be having pain yet, so you don't know what's going on. But you might start having, your heart's not pumping just right, or your intestines aren't moving just right. You might have a little constipation, or a little bladder control issues, or different things in the organ functions. You might start having muscle spasms, or you might have decreased ranges of motion, different things that you don't really necessarily notice or you don't attribute to a back problem. Okay? And as this malfunctions continue, if it isn't removed here, then you get into what's called a state of dis-ease. That's where you just don't feel right. You're fatigued. You don't have the energy that you want. It's hard to get out of bed in the morning. Just different things like that. It's still not associated with, hey, I've got neck pain, back pain, or headaches, but there are things that are going on that you're just not noticing. And eventually, we get into what's called symptoms. And that's where we finally have irritated our sensory nervous system. Now, the symptoms, it's important to notice, are the last thing to appear, and honestly, they're usually the first thing to go away. So if you come in and we adjust you 3 or 4 times and your symptoms go away, you may still have all this going on. Okay, and again, that's where our testing comes in, so we can tell what's going on. Make sure you don't get one more or one less adjustment than your body needs. Okay, so this is how things can go wrong. This is why sometimes you have this going on for a period of years, and then you bend down to pick something up off the floor and you can't stand up. Okay, or you turn your head to back out of the car, the driveway, and you can't turn your neck anymore. It's not that turning of the neck or the bending down that caused the injury. It's years and years of this being here, going through all these phases, and then you finally hit that straw that broke the camel's back. Okay? All right, so tomorrow we're going to talk about the healing phases and what it takes for the body to actually recover from this. See you tomorrow.